All right, welcome to this, study on Impressionism. Going to go through some techniques, but really kind of relying on realism to a certain degree, but trying to be more carefree and loose and playful and really expressive. So I hope you enjoy this. All right, so first I'm just going to cover this with like a basic fast-drying acrylic, but I'm using these golden open acrylic paints, whereby they are workable for much longer on the canvas. So, and only those paints I will be using, except for the background, which I mentioned that is a cheap, fast-drying acrylic that will basically just cover up, just trying to tone that canvas. But starting off here with just trying to pay attention a little bit to the proportions, but maybe not as much as I would if I were doing like a realistic, kind of traditional realistic painting. But I'm trying to get it relatively close to the proportions, but not taking nearly as much time as I would if it were straight realism. So just blocking in this basic shape of that bird on the left. And if you kind of look at the proportions, it's not good, right? It's not perfect, but it's in the ballpark of what I want. You know, you can tell it's a bird. So if you got that kind of basic structure, that pattern, that skeleton, it's something to build on for this type of painting study. So just kind of blocking everything in here, gonna put in some yellow, even though I really covered up quite a bit of this. I think at one point I thought I was gonna use quite a bit of orange because there's blue and that's, a complement. But with this type of a study, I ended up covering most of that up. There was a little bit of orange. But here's something that some of you might not like, but to get creative, get strange in your attempts to kind of mess with your own drawing. You're trying to ruin some edges and get creative, get playful, like taking a brush to it. But yeah, look around your house. There's something you can use that maybe you hadn't ordinarily thought of, like just using the opposite end of the brush there and using a fully loaded brush right there. Just kind of messing with his head. You're messing with your basic drawing. So you haven't gotten too far in the painting yet. You've got that basic shape down, and then the rest of the process, you're just trying to kind of repair some of it and leave some of what you've done. But it can really kind of force the issue of you're trying to be expressive. You're trying to not have these perfect edges. It can really be inspiring for you to take the painting into a different direction that you wouldn't have taken it into if you hadn't done, a certain technique like that. So doing a little repairing, going back in, still relying, as I said in the beginning, on a little bit of realism skills. I am spending a little bit more time on like the bird's eye and the beak, trying to make sure that there's a little bit of an anchor for the viewer to come back to. If everything else just kind of gets nuts and too expressive, their eye can wind up back at that eye and beak. I'll end up putting a little bit more attention and detail in that area. Trying to be expressive with that background and making sure that I'm blending a little bit with these highlights to try to avoid that look that acrylic paint can have, like kind of a plasticky look there. And then taking like a fully loaded brush and just messing with that edge and a little bit of a paper towel, and maybe you're going into the bird's back now and trying to really get a different look with that edge, no matter what part of the bird you're trying to paint. So using paintbrush here with a little bit of maroon to kind of mimic that shape, that arc, that from the head to the tail to the head that is showing up. Mimicking a shape sometimes can work. Wound up using this to a large extent for the background. And so putting some more blue into the bird and then having that show up in the background. Having some of those colors repeated and all the while trying to be as expressive as where this process leads you. You can, return to more of a traditional styled editing moment. It's the beauty of doing a study. There's really no rules. You're just trying to develop some skills that maybe you don't like, and you're like, well, I don't think I'll use that. But maybe you do, and it shows up in a painting like a year from now. I don't know. But trying to do something different where you're incorporating some impressionistic skills here. So trying to mess with that orange and literally having the background go into the back of the bird. But then repairing some of it, if not most of it. So a fun way to kind of break the rules and experiment and just enjoy the process. And I've got an antique butter knife. What is that? You might not want to use your antique butter knife, but I don't know where I found this, but I've got it, so I'm going to use it. I did wind up using like a more traditional palette knife later in the painting, but use what you can. Maybe there's a different look with something you can find. Got that butter knife again. So trying to incorporate that orange in the background a little bit, but just going through a refining process here and there, and a little bit more detail, trying to make the suggestion of the feathers without like carving out each individual feather. There I've got more of a traditional palette knife and just all kinds of different textures and approaches that give a different look than just using a paintbrush all the time. But you could do that. Just use a paintbrush. It's really up to you. Everything's subjective. Trying to put some yellow in the background. He's got a little bit on his back there. And some purple, trying to complement that yellow. But the background changed quite a bit. One point before this, it was just kind of a muddy color, but trying to work more towards a pastel, but using a technique of just adding a little bit of off-white dots and then taking a dry brush and just kind of blending most of those away, but some of it is left behind. And it can really add to the texture that you're wanting to convey in the background. Putting a whole bunch more of those dots and trying to increase that textured look. So the background has changed dramatically. It's definitely looking a little different there. Adding now just a little bit of teal. Not too much. Maybe it's going to show up on the left side a little bit, but just a little bit of a different splash of color. And there you have it, quick study, just super small canvas, style study, a little bit of a color study, but some techniques to kind of break out of that realism if you're wanting to do that. So, thank you for watching.